Welcome to Your Health is Your Wealth. My name is Arga Duenas, and I'm your host for today. I'm also the owner of Back to Nature Health and Wellness Center, located at 115 Ridgely Avenue here in Annapolis. February is Black History Month. I am honored and humbled to have as my guest today a pioneer, a trailblazer, an icon in natural medicine. Her name is Dr. Andrea Sullivan. She's board certified naturopath and homeopathic doctor who has served the Washington, D.C. area, Virginia area for over 30 years. She truly is on a mission to make a difference in the community and to truly reduce pain and human suffering. Dr. Sullivan is not only a pioneer, a trailblazer, an icon. She is my friend, my doctor, and my mentor. Thank you, Dr. Andrea, for coming here today. It's a beautiful day in Annapolis, and I am truly humbled and truly honored. You truly are an amazing, phenomenal woman. You've touched so many people's hearts, and you've made a difference not only in D.C., but Baltimore, Virginia, Philadelphia. Actually, you are nationally known. You've traveled extensively. I've read this bio, and I had no idea that you have made such a difference on the planet. So thank you. My heart goes out to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Dr. Sullivan, before we talk about naturopathy and homeopathy, tell us about your life prior to becoming a doctor. Because when I read your bio and even your book, it was very touching.
Well, I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I went to an all-white Jewish high school, and I think that was my first taste of racism. I went to a predominantly white elementary school too, but there wasn't much of that there that I could recall. I'm only bringing it up because in my book I talk about how my high school counselor told me that I should be a domestic worker. And she said that I shouldn't bother going to college, and she didn't really see the need to assist me in doing that, so being a domestic worker would be sufficient. I was so ashamed and so embarrassed that I didn't tell my parents. So when it came time to go to college, my father said, okay, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to be a secretary. And he said, well, do I need to remind you that you got a D in typing? I don't think you're going to be a secretary. So sure enough, my parents encouraged me to go to school. Still didn't tell them. It wasn't until I received my PhD from the University of Pennsylvania in sociology and criminology that I told a newspaper reporter, actually, who was doing a story about mothers and fathers and how they've encouraged you in what way. It was a story for Mother's Day, though. And I told her the story of my high school counselor. When that was a Saturday, and then Sunday the paper came out. Well, Monday, the principal of the high school, who was no longer the same principal, but the principal of the high school called me and was just in a snit about how I could say such a thing, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, it's true, and if you don't get off my phone, I could have 10 other women to say the same thing, or almost the same thing. Just a time in the 60s to discourage us from being all that we could be.
I totally agree. You are a product of the 60s, and so am I. My first experience with racism was at Annapolis High School when they first desegregated the school. Okay, so I was one of the first African Americans to go to school there, junior high school there. And I remember someone put a tack in my seat. And of course I fell on the floor and everybody laughed. And I got called the N-word, but I was able to rise above that. You know, I did exceptionally well, straight A student, distinguished honor roll. But these are the things that we had to deal with back in the day.
That's right.
But there's a force and power within us that is all-knowing. Am I right, Dr. Sullivan?
That's right.
And when we get on that path and align ourselves with that spirit, we will become the best version of who God has called us to be. And so you moved beyond that.
Oh, absolutely.
You triumphed over that. And in your bio, you were saying you were the first to African American to get a PhD at the University of Pennsylvania.
In sociology and criminology.
Wow. Well, I know you're inspiring somebody out there.
I hope so, because that's my life work,
absolutely.
To be an inspiration and a motivator.
So then you went on and you got an assignment, am I right, with the HUD?
Well, first I taught at Howard, which is how I got to DC.
Okay.
I taught at Howard for a couple of years, and I thoroughly enjoyed teaching, but what I was teaching, criminology and sociology, especially at that time when I could see the African Americans just going into the prisons en masse, it wasn't life-giving.
Right.
And so it wasn't completely satisfying for me, although I enjoyed teaching. Then I got a call to go to the National Urban League in New York.
Right.
And by the time I left there, I was the director of the Administration of Justice there for that department. Then I got a call to come back to DC to be a special assistant for Patricia Roberts Harris in housing and urban development.
Right.
And that really wasn't life-giving.
How was that experience there for you?
Awful. I mean, it was, a grind, nonstop work. The secretary and I, God bless her, didn't agree on most things, and so that was a challenge. I was one of her urban policy advisors, but she wasn't really taking my advice. She was taking the advice of my Caucasian colleagues. Okay. And so it was very, very troubling. I gained 30 pounds. I was 30 pounds overweight, had a face full of acne, and I was tired all the time. And I thought to myself, my Lord, what am I going to look like when I'm 60, 70? Because I was only 31 at the time. Okay. So I didn't have any diagnosable disease. I just didn't feel well. Right. So I took myself to a naturopathic physician in New York City. And the very first visit, he said to me, you should be a naturopath. And I said, excuse me, sir, just give me some of those bat feathers or whatever you boil up in the back room, because I really didn't know much about naturopathy. Right. I just knew I didn't want any medication, because I didn't need any. Right. I said, give me some of those bat feathers, I'm going back to DC. So he laughed, he chuckled, and every month I went, and every month he said the same thing after hearing my story. Finally, after 6 months, Argo, I started feeling so much better and looking so much better that I went back to Howard to take prerequisites for physical sciences.
Okay, so this was almost like the pre-med.
Yes, pre-med.
Is that correct?
That's right, because I was a social scientist. I didn't really have physics or chemistry or all of those subjects.
Right. So that
and I loved it.
So that was truly a defining moment in your life that you just let go.
I had to know what it would be like to be a naturopath. I figured they couldn't take my PhD from me. I could come back and use it any time, but I had to know what it would be like to be a naturopath.
Well, what kind of treatment did, and what was his name?
Dr. D'Adamo.
D'Adamo.
But now it's not the D'Adamo who's made the Eat Right for Your Type so famous.
Right.
That's his son.
Right.
My mentor was the father.
The father.
And he's the one who originally started the Eat Right for Your Type in his first book called One Man's Food is Another Man's Poison.
I did read that in your book.
Right.
Well, let's get a plug for your book here while we're talking.
A
Path to Healing.
A Path to Healing, A Guide to Wellness for Body, Mind, and Soul. You can still get it on Amazon, actually. Yes. I'm aware now, and of course I have copies in my office. Right. I'm actually doing a second book, just to take a little diversion, called Enough When Sacrifice Has Gone Too Far. Right. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But going back to the story, I ultimately just decided I wanted to sell my house and my car, and I moved to Seattle. And I went to Bastyr University, which at the time was Bastyr College. Okay. Which at the time was not even accredited, which at the time was always threatening to close. So it was a huge, huge stress point for me. Right. But I stayed in there. I hung in there. I cried every single day the first year. Between my second and third year, I needed to take a year off because I was just emotionally and psychically spent.
Right. And you did say in your book also that you were the first.
I was the
first African-American student at that college, which is very well known now.
Very well known, absolutely.
Very well known, and accredited.
And accredited, the first accredited school. It's now international. They have classes in other countries. We have offsprings in other states like Connecticut, and Bastyr is also responsible for that school attached to the University of Bridgeport, first one on the East Coast.
Is that in Connecticut?
Uh-huh.
Right.
So yeah, Bastyr is a great school, and all the credit really goes to, of course, the students like me who hung in there the first several years, and Joe Pizzorno, who was the president.
May I say this? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the curriculum there cannot be compared to any type of online PhD in naturopathy. Am I right?
That's correct. And one of the things that I was so forceful about when I came back to D.C. when I graduated, I was also the first naturopathic physician to be on the Board of Medicine, the Allopathic Board of Medicine. And what I did with that position is to invite all of the presidents from the schools to give a presentation to the board so that naturopathic physicians could be licensed in D.C. Because we had people coming in with trucks of herbs from Iowa and Idaho calling themselves naturopaths. I spent far too much time and money for someone who doesn't have a degree, who's never been inside a cadaver lab, never taken physiology or chemistry, to call themselves a naturopathic physician. So we got rid of those folks. They're called something else, which I don't even know or remember. But we do have licensure now in Washington, D.C. And now you have licensure in Maryland.
Right, because there's
although they're charging an exorbitant amount for the license, which, you know, any new naturopath could not afford. I understand that they've reduced it some now because of the protests. But so if you're not going to a licensed naturopathic physician, then please be mindful of what you're doing in terms of taking care of your health.
I totally agree. In fact, in West Annapolis, there is a licensed naturopathic doctor, Dr. Pizzero.
Okay.
And I believe he also went to Bastyr. He's been there for probably about 10 years now.
Okay.
But so you had your defining moment.
I did.
Your spirit redirected you, and you're on course.
Yes, because naturopathy is so life-giving.
What is naturopathy?
Well, it's the use of anything that's natural. Naturo means nature, pathos means suffering, so it's to treat the suffering with something natural. So we use everything from herbs to foods to light to sound to water, of course, with colon hydrotherapy. Certainly homeopathy is a part of naturopathic medicine. Acupuncture is a part of naturopathic medicine. So it's the use of anything that's natural to provide the healing and to prevent disease. We treat people, not just conditions, and so that's so important.
You treat the whole body, mind, and spirit. So what are some of the services that you offer at your Center for a Healing in D.C.?
Well, I'm a naturopathic physician. I'm a homeopathic physician. My specialties are homeopathy, herbal medicine, and nutrition. So those are the three main focuses of my practice. I did have an acupuncturist, probably will get another one, but I haven't taken that step yet. But I find that naturopathy, homeopathy, and nutrition really can do a tremendous amount of good to get people off of their allopathic medicines and to prevent people from going on their allopathic medicines.
Okay, now when you speak of allopathic medicines, to enlighten our viewers, what is allopathic medicine?
Yeah, allopathic medicine, like naturopathic medicine is nature. Allopathic medicine means that you don't have to use the same thing to do the healing. I remember someone said to me once, a professor said to me once, it's like burning your hand and showing it to a chicken. They don't have anything to do with one another.
Wow.
So, for example, you don't get a headache because of a lack of aspirin, but yet you're going to be asked to take Tylenol. You don't get diabetes because of a lack of metformin in your system. So these are things that we have to be mindful of. You get diabetes because of diet, you get diabetes because of lack of exercise, you get diabetes because of stress, you get diabetes because you're not living in a way that allows your system to work optimally. You get headaches because maybe you're not moving your bowels, maybe you're not drinking enough water, maybe you're under stress, maybe your muscles are tense. Many different reasons other than aspirin. So with allopathic medicine, they're not looking at the whole person, they're just looking at the disease, and they are treating a diagnosis. They're treating a number. So you have the disease, you have the number, you have the drug. Naturopathy is completely different because we are looking at, well, tell me what happened 5 years before you got the cancer. Tell me what happened 5 years before you got the diabetes. What was going on in your life? What's happening now? What are your sleep patterns? People underestimate the value of sleep. When you don't sleep enough, you eat more.
Okay.
Because your body thinks that you want energy, because you do,
Right.
but it thinks you want energy from food and not rest.
Right.
When you don't sleep enough, your hormones are stressed. That means your body is stressed.
Right.
That means your adrenal glands move into, I'm sure your listeners know of fight or flight.
Right. Absolutely.
Adrenaline is a real thing.
Right.
Adrenal glands control your blood sugar and your blood pressure. So when you're under stress and all that fight or flight is going on, your blood pressure and your blood sugar are becoming deregulated.
So sleep is very, very important.
Absolutely.
What time should we go to bed at night, Dr. Sullivan?
Ideally at 10.
At 10.
Yeah. Now, we should shut it down, though, before that.
Okay.
Shut it down means, no, we're not going to take the computer to bed with us.
Right.
No, we're not going to put the phone in the bed. No, we're not going to
Absolutely.
take the murder mystery in the bed.
Right.
All those things excite us.
Yes.
So we need to be shutting it down, putting all of those gadgets and all of those electronics in another room even, because that energy affects us during sleep.
Right.
The people who have their phones by their bed so they hear every text, they hear
Right.
every phone call,
Right.
they're not resting.
Right.
And the brain needs to rest ideally again between 10 and midnight.
And at night. Okay.
The cells need to recreate
Okay.
between 10 and midnight. I have far too many people in my practice who say, well, I get to bed like 1 or 2, but I ask them, just give me 2 days a week. 2
Right.
days a week of
Right.
going to bed a little earlier,
Right.
shutting it down,
Right.
and by the time they come back, they say, oh yeah, I actually did it 3 days. I feel pretty good. I actually did it 4 days. So it's breaking bad habits and creating new
Right.
ones. That's
So
really what
when
we're
we
doing.
go into that deep REM state, the body is able to regenerate, renew, repair, and heal itself. I have to make a confession. I don't get enough sleep, honestly, and I'm working on that.
That's good.
I'm mindful of that. So now I'm finding myself really speaking to myself and
Good.
speaking over myself. Okay, Argo, it's time to go to bed.
That's
Because
right.
when I wake up in the morning, if I don't have a good night's sleep, everything is out of whack.
Everything, your
Everything.
memory, your
Absolutely.
concentration, your
Absolutely.
energy, your mood,
Absolutely.
everything is
Yeah,
out of whack.
Absolutely.
You're right.
So in your practice, how I got to know you was I had completed certification of colon hydrotherapy, and I rented a space with no clients at all. And
That sounds familiar.
I just took I took a leap of faith.
Yeah, I
because I
understand
was
that.
working for the government too, and I wasn't getting any satisfaction in what I was doing there. And out of the blue, I get this call from a Dr. Andrea Sullivan. She was looking for a part-time colon hydrotherapist, and the rest is history. And I just want to let you know that I'm eternally grateful
Oh,
that you
bless
gave
your
me
heart.
that opportunity, first of all, to really hone in on those skills, build confidence in myself, gain experience, and be mentored by you. So I am grateful that Spirit brought us together
Well, it was a pleasure.
for a much greater cause. So can you at least let my viewers know why it is so important to keep the colon healthy and
Oh, my
to
goodness.
detoxify the body?
Well, many things, most disease, I will say, comes from inflammation. And that inflammation gets started by toxins.
Yes,
Just imagine not emptying a garbage pail.
absolutely.
And you get lots of things that you don't want.
Absolutely.
Maggots, flies,
That's
all
right.
kinds of things. So if we don't move our bowels every day, if we eat every day, we should move our bowels every day. Emptying a garbage pail is the same thing.
Absolutely.
When that doesn't happen, then fermentation takes place. The fermentation creates toxicity. The toxicity creates inflammation. Stress creates inflammation as well.
Okay.
There are only 4 ways to eliminate. One is the bowel.
Right.
One is the urine or bladder, one is the lung, one is the skin. So if any of those ways aren't operating optimally, then the other 3 are working harder.
Right.
So now imagine you're not drinking water and you're not moving your bowels.
Right.
Then that's an issue.
Right.
Then people have adult acne, or people are irritable, or
Right.
people are having poor concentration and memory, because in fact, they're not feeling well. There's no, again, diagnosable disease,
Right.
but the toxins are creating a sense of dis-ease and lack of wellness.
Right, right. So it is important to detox.
It's absolutely important. That's one of the things I take every patient through.
Right.
On the second visit, actually, that's how important it is to detox for a 10-day period.
Right, and that's with colonics and
foods.
Foods.
Yeah, food, yeah. Now, there are churches, and that's fine, that do these 30-day detox.
That's right.
With nothing to eat until 6 o'clock.
Right.
I personally don't recommend that, especially for diabetics.
Right, absolutely.
So you need to be mindful of your health and your particular diagnoses before you participate in those extensive detox programs.
Right.
It's fine for people who are generally healthy, but to not eat all day, again, stresses your hormones, stresses your adrenal glands, and keeps you in a state of
fight or flight.
Fight or flight.
Let's talk about the health crisis in America and in the African American community, which is disproportionately higher. We know that heart disease is the #1 cause of death, colon cancer is the #2 cause of death, and now it is stated that medical errors is the 3rd cause of death. And Alzheimer's is truly on the rise.
Well, don't leave out diabetes.
And diabetes, that's right. 1 in 3. 1 in 3 people are, they say 1 in 3 people are pre-diabetic or diabetic.
Right.
Can you
undiagnosed diabetic.
Can you speak to that?
Well, yes, I can. And be mindful that in African Americans, it's almost 60% of us are diabetic or pre-diabetic. And of course, it all speaks for me to diet and lifestyle and stress.
Right.
One of the emphasis of my next book, Enough When Sacrifice Has Gone Too Far, which will be out by the end of the year, hopefully, talks about how African American women especially have been the backbone for our communities, socially, politically, spiritually, financially, emotionally. Everything has fallen upon us.
Yes.
And especially now, as the situation gets worse with our men going into prison or being on the down low or both.
Yes.
So that situation and circumstance has really, really catapulted our numbers into an urgent proportion.
Yes.
We don't have any support for the most part. And let me say this too. Our Caucasian sisters also have their share of being alone and raising families on their own. The difference, though, is their husbands are lawyers or doctors.
Right.
So they have the financial support, even though the husband may be out of the home most of the time. But financially, they're covered.
Yes.
We have to care for all of that. And that's a historical perspective and issue because we've always had to do that.
Right.
Because of our separation in slavery, because we weren't allowed to marry, because if we were found married to someone in another plantation, then he would be killed, or we would be killed, or we would be raped. So all of that is something that we have gone through historically that has led us to this point today. So my position is that's fine that we've gone through that. We can rise above that. If we've gone through the middle passage and we've made that a place where we can get out of and we can rise above and be resilient, let's use that resilience to bolster ourselves up out of this situation that we're in now.
Right.
We are dying younger and faster from most everything than every woman on the planet. Younger and faster. Not just, from diabetes, but from cancer, from heart disease, from all of it.
Dr. Sullivan, I saw on CNN just a little clips about health, and I think it was Dr. Sanjay Gupta who also said that the younger people will not live as long. No. And even Dr. Wallach, who's world-renowned naturopathic doctor who sued the FDA 9 times in one, his prediction also was that our young people are not going to live as long because of the lifestyle and stress. Am I right?
That's correct.
Every day, I don't mean I'm going to, but every day I have clients who come in, women, especially in their 30s, with a diagnosis of diabetes, hypertension, and breast cancer. And now our young African American men at the ages in their 50s are just dropping dead of heart attacks. And I've been going to so many funerals. And I mean, it's it's a phenomena that is unnatural for us to bury our children. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, keep in mind that many of our 20-year-old population are hypertensive.
Yes.
I mean, that's unheard of.
I had a young girl come in, 24, Caucasian, 24 years old, didn't have a weight problem, about 5 feet, maybe 125 pounds, on blood pressure medicine. So this is real and it's happening. What can we do?
Well, we can start being mindful of what we put in our mouths, first of all. We can start being mindful about what we spend our money on. And this is in my book too, and the sisters are not going to like this, but you know, we spend a whole lot of money on our hair.
That's right.
And then we tell people like me that we can't afford to come to me to spend money on our health.
Hair,
nails, spa, and all that's important.
Bags, pocketbooks.
Pocketbooks, oh my gosh.
Gucci bags.
Pocketbooks, that's right, shoes, etc. All that's important. Right. And it's not important if you can't use it because you're in a wheelchair or because you're drooling or because you're dead.
Absolutely.
So we have to put we have to get a different perspective. Absolutely. In other words, we have to change our priorities. Yes. You know, this whole notion of soul food. It's soul food, all right. It'll take you closer to your soul the sooner. Yes, that's what I say too. Because the things that we're still eating, the fried chicken, the pork, the bacon, I mean, people tell me all the time, I just love my bacon, Dr. Sullivan. Okay, that's fine. You see how that works for you. Turkey bacon is a great alternative. Turkey sausage or chicken sausage or something that doesn't have as much salt and fat.
And nitrates.
And nitrates and all that. Well, that's a given. Hopefully, many people now know that if it's not free range, that it has hormones, tranquilizers, and antibiotics in it. I've been saying that for 32 years. But now, we really have to understand that we have control of our health. Yes. We have control of it. Yes. Every choice we make, every day we have a choice, and every choice we make is a choice toward wellness or illness. Absolutely. And no, does Daya cheese taste as good as Manchego cheese? No. But so have your Manchego cheese once a week as opposed to every day, or have your Swiss cheese. But then have your Daya cheese the rest of the time. So everything in moderation. Right. You know, people that are still drinking milk. Milk is for baby cows. Absolutely. Milk is not for us. We're the only animal that drinks milk from another animal. Right. You're never going to see a bear go to a crocodile. Right. It's just not going to happen.
Right, that's true.
Even cows don't go back to their mothers once their 4 stomachs are formed. So once they come out of infancy, just like we get breastfed, once they come out of infancy, they eat plants. Absolutely. They don't go back and drink milk. Right. But we have this notion, well, we're going to get lactate milk. Really? Okay. Yeah, because we know we can't digest it, but we're going to get lactate milk, or we'll get 2% milk, or at least it's organic. No, no. All those things are great, and just take another step. Absolutely. Take another step that says no milk, because there's so many plant milks now, as opposed to when I first started practicing, that again, it's a matter of choice. Right. And choice is what we have, and choice makes the difference between illness and wellness. Absolutely.
And truly, health is our wealth, Dr. Sullivan. I am so grateful to have you here. Can you speak a little bit about blood type, because I think that is so important.
Oh, sure. Well, you know, my mentor, again, James D'Adamo, who's now passed on, he created this whole idea and studied this whole idea of blood types in Germany, actually, where he went to school. And so, essentially, people, I'll just pick one blood type. Blood type A's, for example, generally speaking, should be vegetarian. I'll put that in quotes, because milk and dairy will always constipate them and congest them. Unlike a blood type O, who can have animal protein, not dairy, but animal protein. So I find in my practice, you know, there's a lot of controversy around this, of course, because people don't want to hear it, and nutritionists don't want to hear it. But I find it to be true in my practice clinically that if I have a blood type A and they're meat and dairy eaters, they have the worst sinus problems, they have the worst headaches and colds. You take them off of that and they are 200% better.
Well, I want to say you truly changed my life, because I'm an O blood type, and I was a vegan for many years.
I remember that.
And then I started having dreams of eating chicken and fish. And then you said, "Oh, you're O Argo. You should never have been a vegan at all." I became very anemic, and so, you know, God in His awesome wisdom connected the both of us for many reasons. We're here
Absolutely.
today to make a difference in the community,
That's
to
right.
impact the world,
That's right.
and to save us from ourselves,
That's right. That's
especially
right.
our children.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Doc,
Thank
for,
you.
for
Namaste.
being my
Yeah.
namaste,
Yeah.
for being
God
my
bless you.
special guest and friend today. Thank you for watching. Your health is your wealth. And do remember, in this very present moment, we do have the power to take charge of our life and our health. And have a great day.